Yeah, we bring reviews of your house. Talk to our dudes of your house. I bring my views of your house. Wrestling truths of your house. We talk to you in your house. We keeps it cool in your house. We keeps it cool in your house. I'm spitting truths in your house. Yeah. Mark's hating on his fans. Becky Nish on the man. Play with two like a lions. Household a dangerous alliance. I am an army like Cody. And I'm overcoming like Kobe. No, they cannot hold me. Come listen, I'm hosting, critiquing, I'm boasting. This wrestling I'm knowing.
My name is Brian Pillman Jr. And you're listening to the In Your House podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to In Your House, starring Alakon House and my man, Michael Hutchison. That's Mikey Hutch. This is the People's Podcast. Hey, you guys already know what it is. It is your boy Khan, ready to get out work when it comes to this professional wrestling business. That is what we do. We love it. This work. That's what we do every single day. Guys, let me let you know you guys can listen to us at. You guys can listen to us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Himalaya. Hey, you don't have an Apple device? That's alright. We're on Google Play. Hey, anywhere that you guys are, we can get to you. So, you guys already know what it is. Man, wrestling is hot, on fire, Myron Reed. I hope you checked that interview out. But the wrestling business has been on fire. There's so much to talk about. Every day there's some news, and with the influx of content coming in now. I mean, I was thinking that Roundtable Super Slam that we did. If you guys remember that first episode, I remember how heavy that episode was and how much it got downloaded and people were talking about it, and that was really cool. And man, I just thought it was only right that with this heavy content coming in, hey, we got to do it again, yo. So, of course, we got my man Michael. That's Mikey Hutch. How are you doing, bro?
Doing well, and it's great to be back with everybody here. We've gathered again for the household. We had a great show the first time. It was awesome chatting it up with everybody, and looking forward to round two. And we got a very, very awesome subject to talk about, man. A lot to digest, a lot to discuss. And again, we you know, as awesome as you and I are, we couldn't take care of it alone.
Oh no,
so
no.
So, yeah, we had to bring backup. So, yeah, it's great to be here on this lovely Saturday evening. And I'm not sure when this will be dropping. When are we dropping this on them?
We will be dropping this on them Monday morning at 6 a.m. So, those Mondays, those Monday blues, hey, kick them with a little in your house. How about that?
I like that. Monday. Start your Monday morning with us. Sounds good to me. So, yeah, it's good to be here and ready to chop it up with you guys.
And, of course, Michael, we are always happy to have you. And now, of course, my man, Albert Albanese. How are you doing, bro?
Man, I am doing great. It's a lovely Saturday evening, and I'm looking forward to talking wrestling with you guys. It's always a good time when I'm here.
Oh, man, and we love having you, bro. We definitely love having you. Of course, Albert Albanese Slam Sessions Podcast. Check him out on the Slam Sessions Podcast Network, and that moves it on to my man, Andre Joseph. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing very well, Con. Thanks for having me back. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation today.
Oh, man, truly appreciate you coming on. Of course, my man Andre, he is the host of the Silver Screen Action Figure Podcast. So please go check my man out and support both these great podcasts. You know, we definitely like to share the love around here at In Your House, and that is what we do. But man, as far as love goes, there is no love lost between Dean Ambrose, now known as Jon Moxley in the WWE in a rather scathing interview that he did with Chris Jericho on his podcast. Michael, did you listen to that, bro?
I did twice, actually,
wow.
just because I wanted to make sure that I heard what I heard. I mean, whew, like he gave no fucks about the fire hazards or like the fire around the bridge, did he?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
that's what I heard.
And it was a great listen. I mean, I would, I don't want to compare because like in wrestling, you always hear, oh, this is the next this, the next that. But I would put this, honestly, on the level of the CM Punk podcast that he did with Colt Cabana.
Oh, I do
back in the day.
I do remember
when he's like, yeah, you got this curtain here. Well, let me rip this sumbitch right down so you can really see what's going on. See what the fuck Oz is doing, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, boy, Oz has lost his fucking mind. That's all I can say. And, I mean, it sounds like it's just how do you say, I'm going to put this as delicately as I can. It's kind of a clusterfuck there at WWE right now. And
that is kind of what it sounds like a little bit, yeah.
And you got your interviews where it sounds like they're bitter, right?
Yeah.
This didn't come off as him being bitter to me.
Okay.
Like he was just done. I mean, I'm
kind of spent.
And I'm sure the fellas here, has listened to it, and you really should, man. Like it's good stuff. But yeah, it was a hell of a listen.
Oh yes. And Albert, have you got a chance to listen to it, or at least read any snippets from it or anything?
So I actually wanted to keep completely away from this thing until I listened to it, and I actually wound up listening to it the day it dropped. I was like, all right, you know what? Let's do this.
Great.
And, man, I get attacked a little bit because I tend to be a little bit more I guess maybe I favor the WWE a little bit more than a lot of other people do. A lot of people, we've said this before on this podcast. I've said this, I think, every time I've come on. I think, wrestling fans are more than anything negative upon the WWE. And for the most part, I think a lot of it's for, the wrong reasons at times. But when you hear something like this from a guy who is as decorated as the now Jon Moxley is, like Mike said, it's eye-opening, it really is. It's kind of crazy. And Andre can tell you as well, before there was a Dean Ambrose, there was a Jon Moxley. And Andre and I were at a Dragon Gate show together, and Jon Moxley was the only guy at that Dragon Gate show to pick up a microphone. And Andre and I, along with the other guys that we were with, just turned to each other and went, yo, this guy's going to be big. He's got it. Just immediately recognized it. Not only was he great in the ring, but as soon as he picked up that microphone, we were captivated.
Yeah.
So to hear some of the stuff that he said about the way things are handled, which we'll delve into obviously as this podcast goes along.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It really is. It kind of shows where the company is now and may not be in a good place.
Oh man, I hear that. That's what I am hearing, bro. The things that I'm hearing are absolutely crazy. Andre, brother, hop into this. Have you got a chance to listen to it?
Well, the first thing that I did was I read the initial breakdown of what he said before I started listening to the entire podcast. And the thing about it, what stood out to me was that I don't think it was as damning as the CM Punk interview on Colt Cabana's show. And I say that from this particular standpoint, where Punk had completely lost his passion, was completely discouraged by the wrestling business. I felt that from Jon Moxley / Dean Ambrose, that he was somebody that was a lifelong fan who worked in the indies, had that dream of wanting to become a WWE superstar. I remember particularly, I think they had like an old school night on Raw one year, and Jake the Snake Roberts came out after the Shield got beat up, and he dropped the snake, which I'm not going to call Damien because I'm sure it had a different name, but he dropped the snake on Dean, and you could see Dean kind of laughing a little bit before the show ends, because you could tell he's feeling like he's a kid all of a sudden. Like, this is the stuff that he used to watch growing up.
Yeah.
But just like any business, and in particular WWE, you get caught up in the corporate structure and a out-of-touch boss that dictates exactly who you are supposed to be. And for somebody like him, he just felt inauthentic by what they were giving him and all the silliness that was being thrown his way, the backstage segments and all. He was just starting to lose his passion. So the fact that he walked away, from a big money contract and, a great deal of popularity, I think it says a lot that he put his passion for the business over the money part. And I think that says a lot with how you see that spark return in AEW.
Oh man, I mean, a lot of what you're saying is so true. I mean, definitely, Moxley has a passion for the business, and the fact that you and Albert got a chance to see him up close in his early days, and now what he's become now. Let me throw it in here like this. Man. One of the biggest things that stood out to me, I did not listen to the interview, but I have read things here and there, and one thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that he said whether AEW was coming or not, I do believe he said he was just done. Like he was done a long time ago, and one thing, and you guys were talking about, and all of you guys compared it to the CM Punk thing, and I agree. I see how it is comparable, but here's the big difference between the two that sticks out to me. If you guys remember, they were calling CM Punk quitter, and he's a quitter this, quitter that. I mean, the memes and everything going on with that, and that was because he broke his contract and just quit. But I think that it's a little bit different from Moxley, because people kind of have that respect factor that he saw his contract out. Instead of just quitting, he did continue out his contract and finished up and I think that puts a little bit of respect on his name, as to where there was some people that just thought CM Punk was just a quitter. And so I want to start the conversation off like this. Michael, what do you think about the comparisons of CM Punk and Jon Moxley? Do you have more respect for Moxley because he saw out his contract than you do CM Punk? What do you think about that?
Well, it's excuse me. It's tough to say. That's a really good question. I think it depends on the circumstances, because as you know, people handle things differently. Yeah. And CM Punk, I mean, to say I don't know the guy. I don't want to assume, but he seems like a very antisocial person in a lot of ways, and WWE seems rife with conflict and whatnot. So it just sounds like an awful mix. And then you got Moxley, and I feel, I'm not saying they're similar. Again, I don't think they are. But he don't take any shit either, basically. Yeah. So, but I think what it boils down to is it affected Punk on the level of where he's just like, as was previously stated, he was done. It killed his passion. And in a lot of ways, in some ways, it seemed like it did with Moxley as well. I mean, he said he had depression and all that. Yeah. And this is before Jericho plugged Omaha Steaks. Fucking Segway Jones here. He's like, depression sucks. What I'm depressed about? A bad steak. Omaha Steaks, get them.
What was that?
I mean, I get that he has to do it, but it was just wow.
A hard segue.
Yeah, but anyway, and it affected Moxley too, because I mean, he was depressed, and he was talking about, I was sick every Monday because they was basically saying they're going to make me go out and say something stupid. Yeah. And I don't want to do it. And again, that's not bitterness. I can't blame him, because come on. What he's done, that promo that he cut about, this is a war, we're going to rock the foundations of the pillars of this business, or whatever it is that he said. After
paradigm shift.
The paradigm shift and all of that. That was just good shit.
Yeah.
And why? Because it was him being him.
Yeah. Yep. It was him being him, and that's the authenticness that you have to have. You know what I mean? And so now I'm throwing it over. I'm throwing it over to Albert. What do you feel, bro? Do you feel more respect towards Moxley because he saw out his contract than you do CM Punk?
So, I really, first of all, throughout this whole thing, I respect Moxley for what he did. Yeah. There are a lot of times where, I had this conversation. I got a lot of negative reaction. I mentioned this the last time I was here. I did a video about Sasha Banks, and I got a lot of negative reaction because I had felt that Sasha Banks was kind of being a little bit of a quitter. Yeah. That things weren't going her way, and she just kept complaining. Yeah. The thing that I learned about Jon Moxley throughout this, his Dean Ambrose run, especially after, the Shield broke up, was that he was in Vince's office constantly saying, hey, this isn't that good. How about we do this? Let's do this instead. Let's make my character go this way. Let's try to do this. So he wasn't complaining and whining. He was going to the person who writes everything and says, hey, I got a problem with this. Let's sit down and let's find, the right place to go. Yeah. So, he told, obviously he told the story that, he couldn't really walk out, even though there was a point where he wanted to, because, his wife does work for WWE. He didn't want to make things harder for her. Yeah. And he, obviously she has a good position there. So that's a responsibility, I guess. He felt that as a husband. But the story he told was that he was ready to walk out the day he did the backstage vignette where he got the shot in his butt.
Shots in his butt. Yep. Yeah.
Yep. And he talked about how he went to Vince and he hated it. And he talked about how Vince was like, no, this is good stuff, This is why everybody likes you. You got to be crazy. You got to be wacky. And that was Vince's way of thinking, that's how we book Dean Ambrose. Let's do something crazy. And that day he was just like, I keep getting these scripts, and I learned how to wrestle on the indies, and I learned how to talk on the indies, and they're not letting me be who I am. So I get it. He was frustrated. And the respect factor comes in that at that point, he could have walked out, and it would have made him look worse, because look at what happened with Neville. A lot of people are talking negatively about him. He walked out on WWE and AEW. Yep. Punk walked out on WWE. People talked very negative about that. Yep. You can't say anything negative about Ambrose. He wrote everything out. He knew that 8 months out in his contract, he was done, and he said, okay, let's do this. And he went to Vince, and he told him like a man, and said, hey, I'm not re-signing. These are the reasons why. I'm sorry. Thank you for everything you've done for me, but I'm done. I have nothing but respect for Jon Moxley for the way he handled his business. He handled it like a man. Yep. He handled it like a person should. Yep. And there's nothing at all wrong with what Jon Moxley did.
Great, wonderful points. I agree, bro. Facts. Mm-hmm. Yep, facts, bro. Just very wonderfully said, bro. Very wonderfully said. Now I'm gonna throw it to my man Andre. Where are you at, bro? Hop in this conversation. How do you feel about, on a respect scale, where are you at with the way that Moxley went out writing out his contract, and CM Punk, who of course quit abruptly? Where are you at on that?
So I would side more so on the Jon Moxley matter, but this is the reason why. So when I first heard Punk on the Art of Wrestling podcast and he explained his whole story, I was very sympathetic to his situation because he was banged up. He had the gash in his back that could have nearly have killed him. He had to put over a number of part-timers, and clearly he had his true beef with Triple H more so than Vince McMahon because he felt that Triple H was the one that was kind of holding back that one step that he needed to be a main eventer at WrestleMania. So, I was very sympathetic to him at that time, but over time I felt a great deal of resentment towards him, mainly because he just took the situation and suddenly it became sort of a condemnation of the wrestling business in itself, cutting ties with all of his friends who really had nothing to do with the situation, and kind of just crapping on the business anytime he even talks about it. Clearly has no chance of wanting to go back into any other promotion or to put anybody over. And there's other stuff too with like him and Colt and the lawsuit there.
Yeah.
So there just seems to be like he's trying to take all these other steps to remain relevant, but instead it's throwing him 10 steps back.
Yeah.
And it's just making him much smaller in my eyes.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, I look at Jon Moxley and I feel like, okay, he wasn't happy. He was clearly unsatisfied with the direction that the company was putting him in. And like Albert said, you know, doing the bit where he had the shot put in his butt, or even the whole feud with Seth Rollins and the way that the company dropped the ball in the booking of it, you know, he clearly had his reasons to go. But at the same time, he took it like a man. Like whatever the company threw at him, even a Nia Jax feud, you know, he just said, okay, let's do it. You know, let's just make it work. He tried to adjust, and he fulfilled his commitments, you know. And, yeah, they kind of, like, buried him a bit at the way out, but he still took it like a man. And I don't know if we'll get into the Wade Keller podcast, but I know that he definitely did not want to come off like he was completely bitter to WWE, because he's still thankful for his time there. And certainly, you know, he's very thankful for the guys he worked with, whether it's in the Shield or his opponents.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, he still loves this business. He wants to see it get better.
Yeah.
And I don't think Punk sees that in the same light.
I agree with that. I don't think Punk sees it in the same way. I think that a lot of what Punk did, and a lot of people were bashing Punk, because at that time, like, wrestling needed Punk. Like, it really did. Like, he was keeping things interesting for a really long time, and he just kind of like, he quit on us. He quit on himself, and I get it. I get everything that he was going through and stuff like that. But man, like, I know a lot of people, you know, that have had, you know, that have suffered from depression, and you know what I mean. I've had bouts with it in my life, so I know how that feeling is. But I hear the things that Moxley is saying that he's going through, from whatever, you know, from what I heard from the podcast, and I'm thinking, I'm like, man, like, this dude, like, he just toughed it out. He toughed out the rest of his contract. You know what I mean? And he saw a grand opportunity for him to be a foundational piece with a brand new company, and they're screaming, oh, we're going to let you have creative freedom. We're going to let you do this. It was a prime time opportunity. It was timing for Moxley. He didn't make himself look into, you know, he didn't make himself look like a public spectacle by quitting before his contract was up and turning it into a big old thing. He wrote it out. He did his jobs. You know, I do believe he got beat up by Nia Jax. You know what I mean? Like, and he took it all. He took it all in stride. Just for him to have his last match, which apparently he only got paid $500 for, if I'm hearing correctly.
100% right.
Oh man, crazy.
Yep.
But man, when I'm hearing that, I'm like, man, he toughed it out, saw a prime time spot, and took it, and now he's happier, and I think that it's good for AEW to have Jon Moxley, and I think that he's going to be a star, an even bigger star than I even imagined, than what I thought he was going to be moving forward with some creative freedom. Now, moving right along, one thing that I want to talk about, we're not going to cover the entire podcast. We're going to hit bits and pieces here, but there's other things I wanted to talk about. Now, and I'll ask you guys individually, do you guys remember when Moxley, then Dean Ambrose, during the Dean Ambrose run, came back from injury and he was just big? Do you remember that, Michael?
I do. Like, because I remember us talking about it. I'm just like,
yeah.
He looks almost like a different person. you know,
he was huge.
And I was hopeful. Because I always was hopeful ever since I saw that they signed this man. Because I see what he did as Moxley before. The promos that he was able to give, because I was like, man, talk about somebody that could, as they say, because again, it's what it's all about, talking people into the seats, so to speak, talking people into watching. And he can be very intelligent. But when you got him hanging out with a plant named Mitch, and then you're wanting to talk about pooper scoopers and all this shit, that's good shit, pal. Because that's who you are. You're goofy. You're zany. You're Dean Ambrose. Like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Again, I mean, and that's what was great to hear Dean Ambrose on this podcast, because he was talking about like things that were basically a layup as far as like his return and all that, and he's like basically like, how can you mess this up? Yeah, but they did.
Man, they really did.
It's sad, and again, we've said it before. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Oh, yeah. And it's the process of the writing that would drive me up the wall. It's like, okay, you got your writers like, here, you're going to say this. Okay, what the fuck is this? No, fuck you. I don't want to say that. Then the writer's got to take that back to Vince. No, fuck him. He's saying that. Yeah. And then he's got to take it back to him. And then he's like, no, I'm not saying that. And then he's got to go to the office to Vince. He's like, yeah, man, you need to say that. It's
too much.
Ridiculous.
It's too much. It's just too much. It's too much, bro. And I agree with you there. Albert, where are you at? Where was your thought process at the time when you realized and you first saw, no matter if you was watching it live or if you saw it on the internet afterwards, when you saw the transformation of Dean Ambrose?
So I know that they came out with the WWE Network special about him, and I remember going, "Oh man, this is great! 8 months, Ambrose." Now we brushed, and even Ambrose brushed by this in the podcast. He was in rough shape. He was supposed to be out for a couple of months.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, things just got so much worse. And, for something he was only supposed to be out for a couple of months and was supposed to return around WrestleMania, he didn't wind up coming back until around SummerSlam. So, I mean, first and foremost, we just got to be happy that he was able to even come back.
Right, yeah.
And then here comes Dean Ambrose, member of The Shield, former heavyweight champion. He comes back, and it's like, oh, okay, well, Ambrose is back. And, and he described it on the podcast as the idea of, here I am, I'm going to come back, and he didn't want to come back and just be in Seth's corner for SummerSlam. The idea was, hey, let me just show up at SummerSlam and surprise people. And Vince was like, yeah, all right, we'll do that. That's great. And then the next day, I got a phone call and said, yeah, we're going to need you back at TV, and we're going to do it the week before, which is exactly what he said he didn't want to do. So he knew he was snake bit from the beginning. Yeah. And the funny thing is that he brought up the fact of him saying, Seth Rollins saying, hey, Dolph, you have a psychopath in your corner, so I'm going to have a lunatic in your corner. And he said the only thing he was waiting for was the pop. He wanted that pop coming back. He knew the fans had missed him. He knew that everybody was wondering when he was coming back.
Yeah.
And he said it was muddled in the beginning because everybody was like, wait, does that mean is he here? Then the music hit, and then eventually he got the pop that he was craving, but it was just, they could have done it in so much of a better, in such a better way. Like, why not have Seth just cornered and the two of them look like they're about to beat him up? And if Ambrose's music just hits out of nowhere, the roof comes off that place.
Right, yep.
The place explodes. And the way that these guys are booking shows and the way that they're doing things, they're ruining the surprises that they could have. I mean, like I said, I often wind up defending the WWE, but I feel like every time I'm on this show, I don't, because the things that are coming to light now is so bad. Like,
it's crazy.
I want to be. Look. You'll see it if you guys go to the Slam Sessions Network on YouTube. You'll see it. I talk crap about indie wrestling fans all the time. I was nicknamed the patron saint of fan hate by one of my listeners. Like, everybody, and that's the thing. Like, I come on here and I'm like, why are they so stupid sometimes? And it's, I get mad. I get so mad when people sit there and they'll tell me, oh, this was a layup. It's so easy. I could have written that. Yeah, sure, right. You who have just watched wrestling for 20 years just know exactly what it's like to write a story and have it, go from week 1 to week 16 and know exactly where it's going the entire time.
Yeah.
And then I realized, wait, they don't know that either.
It's a task.
Everybody working there has no idea what's going on. And this, oh man, and just Moxley talking like this just opens it up for everybody to realize, all right, they got a bunch of people, they're writing stuff, they're submitting it, the wrestlers are going, oh shit, not this again. Then they're getting handing it back and they're going, why are you saying this? And they're going, okay, well, we're going to bring it up to somebody else. And then they're rewriting it, and then they're bringing it back to you. No, I'm still not saying this. Fine, I got to go to Vince. And then he walks back, and you open the door, and Vince is sitting there. He's like, what are you talking about, pal? This is great. And it's like, I would want to kill myself if I was the performer in that
situation.
The second he came back, he's got to feel that the entire time, and it's no wonder why the guy walked out and when his contract was up. You can't deal with that frustration that often.
No, you can't. And I agree with that, man.
I'm sorry, if I can interject, I'm
please.
about to pass around the collection plate because this man is preaching right now. Amen.
Oh man. Great stuff, and I agree, man. I know that you lean more towards the WWE side of things, and of course, we all here, we respect each other's opinions on wrestling, and that's why we're able to come and do this. You know what I mean? Come together and do these roundtable super slams because it's just four cool cats just giving their opinions on wrestling, and that's what we do. We just talk it, we just chat. So with that being said, I'm gonna throw it to my man Andre. Where were you at when you saw the transformation of at the time Dean Ambrose's body?
Well, when he came back, I mean, I definitely took note of the fact that he looked a lot bigger and a lot jacked up, but I also felt that his personality became more restrained when he came back and was teaming with Seth and teaming with Roman. Yeah. It didn't seem like they were going with the goofy type of Dean Ambrose direction at that particular point. And at the same time, I sensed that a heel turn was coming. It was just a matter of when that was going to happen as opposed to if. Yeah. So, it seemed like maybe it would happen maybe towards the end of the year, maybe towards WrestleMania. And then Roman got sick, and that suddenly changed the whole dynamics of what was going to be the storylines moving forward. So, yeah, I mean, I was shocked when I first heard about that and really became sympathetic to Roman. Not that I ever really hated him as a person. Trust me, I was actually his biggest fan when he first came out with the Shield, and I only crapped on him when Vince decided to make him the guy and do these crappy promos and force him down the fans' throats, and that's obviously a whole different discussion. But the thing that stuck out for me in that interview with Jericho was when they turned Ambrose heel, it was this weird thing where on one hand they were making him even more stupid rather than making him look a deadly serious heel. The motivation to turn on Seth made no sense. Him coming out with the surgical mask and, complaining about everybody smelling in the ring, like, going at the fans. It was just like total horse shit, really. Yeah. None of it really added real tension to what was supposed to be, a big money feud. Yep. And then to find out later on that he became uncomfortable with the stuff Vince wanted him to say about Roman, it was almost along the lines of the way that they were cashing in on Eddie Guerrero's death. Randy Orton with the promo on Rey Mysterio. Oh, Eddie's not in heaven, he's in hell. It's just like, it's such low nonsense from a guy who is 73 years old and out of touch with reality. I mean, even Dean had the sense of saying, if we even go this way, we're going to lose sponsors. I mean, this is just like as low as I'm not even going to go. So little things like that, it's like they had this potential to do something really big with him, and they totally dropped the ball. And you could sense it week after week that he was just losing that faith and that passion in what he was doing. It was a matter of time before something was going to be the breaking point, and it was probably that promo where he got the shot up his butt.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm hearing great points all around here. I mean, and we're going to talk about something that Andre just brought up, and for me, man, when I saw Dean Ambrose and the transformation of his body, I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, Vince has to love this. He has to love this because he loves big, jacked up guys. It shows Dean Ambrose is doing the work. When he was off, he was doing the work and putting and investing in his body. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, dog, he can talk. He can talk, and now he's got a look where he looks bigger, and he's always been good in the ring. Okay, he's probably about to be getting pushed again, like at some point, like he's going to work his way up the card again, and boy, did that not happen. That did not happen. I mean, just a lot of just awkwardness. I've always been a huge Moxley fan since before he was with the WWE. I've always been a fan of the guy. I mean, I always felt like the guy could talk you into a building, and he just never really had a chance to do it. And for somebody who's got a mouthpiece like him, Andre brought up something about the uncomfortable things that Vince wanted him to say about Roman Reigns' illness and whatnot during that storyline with Seth. I did not hear some of the things that he wanted to say, or even if Moxley said on the interview what was said. But I'm going to start it off here with Michael. Can you enlighten me about these things that he wanted him to say?
Well, if you recall, there was one line that Ambrose said about, like, he basically just referenced Roman having cancer. Yeah. And I guess and I do believe Ambrose said, like, he was too busy trying to weed out all the, like, the silly ass zany bullshit that they wanted him to say, that he kind of overlooked this. And then as soon as like the moment he said the line, he was like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have said that. That's awful. And then apparently there was another line that Vince wanted him to say. He said he would not divulge the line on the show, that he would tell Jericho off air. But if he would have said it, they most likely would have lost their Susan B. Coleman ties and all that. Like, apparently it was really, really bad.
Oh my gosh, I want to know what it was.
But this is nothing new with Vince, man. I mean, not to say that it's not stale, because it's awful. But let's face it, the man's no saint. I mean, it's one thing, and like, I mean, because along the lines, because again, Vince lives in a bubble. Yeah, he doesn't think about the actual ramifications of that. He thinks, is that going to draw heat? Yeah, that will. Let's bring that up, because Roman's the good guy. We want the people to cheer for Roman. So if we talk shit about the cancer, then that's going to do it. But I applaud Dean for because a lot of people there, and they have, not to this degree, of course, but they eat shit and then they continue coming to work and they continue doing it. And Dean did that too. But I give it to Dean for stepping up and just being like, you know what? No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do that. So, yeah, man, it's bad. It's bad. I don't get it, because Vince, and again, I know it sounds like, because I always try to reiterate on this show, like we try to be neutral. I loved WWE growing up. And there's still some things about the current product that I do enjoy. Yeah, as I said on the previous, one of our last episodes, there's some stuff on this week's, Raw that I actually liked. Yeah. But so again, it's not all doom and gloom and bad. But this, if anything, is going to screw over WWE. And I don't care if somebody wants to say this is a war, this is not a war. It's competition. That's all there is to it. This AEW thing, you may not want to put that war label on it, but it's competition. And if anything is going to screw over WWE right now, it is this shit that is brought up on this podcast.
Oh, man. Absolutely, man. I agree with you. And I'm the same with you, bro. I'm the same. Listen, I don't want to come out. I don't want to be that guy. And of course we're about to get to my man Albert. But I just want to say real quick, we don't want to be those guys here. We don't want to be those guys that just bashes. You know, oh, it's cool to bash the WWE. Like, okay, no, it's beneficial for all of wrestling to be good. That's what some people don't understand. Oh, I want to put this company in the dirt, or this company needs to go in the dirt. Like, no. They all need to be here. Like, things were so great when there was 2 major wrestling promotions, and now here we are again. This is great. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it over to my man Albert over here on the things that were said or that we did not hear that Vince wanted Moxley to say about Roman Reigns' cancer.
So, Andre actually brought up something, you know, he brought up the Wade Keller interview, and I'm going to touch on that in just a second, because this harkens back to the first ever time I was actually ever on your show. So, I don't get where the WWE is coming from here. I understand that you want Roman Reigns to look like a sympathetic character. I understand that you know, another thing that, you know, that Mike really put everything very eloquently and really put everything together really well of what was said on the show. The one thing I think he missed was just the fact that Vince had said, well, we want to keep doing this kind of stuff because we want to keep Roman relevant, because we want him to be involved. You didn't just turn on Seth, you turned on Seth and Roman.
Yeah.
And I understand that,
Right.
you know, hey,
Right.
let's keep Roman's name in, you know, in people's mouths so that we understand that, you know, he's still around. He's not gone. You know, we don't think he's going to have to retire due to this.
Yeah.
Let's keep him relevant. And I understand that, but to do it this way, and, you know, if for something that was so horrible that that Moxley didn't even feel comfortable with saying it on air to Jericho, I mean, that's bad. And you can't do business that way. And I think this idea stifles, you know, the idea of, you know, stifling creativity, and the idea with Roman and everything involved really shows that he had said during the Wade Keller interview that, hey, I think that Roman didn't get over because of all the stupid stuff they had scripted for him. And, you know, I tagged you in this on Facebook earlier today, and I was like, hey, remember when I said this?
Yep.
Because that was my whole point the first time I came on. Fans turned their backs on Roman because Vince said, hey, here's the guy we're going to make, you know, we're going to make the next big guy. And before, you know, he was over, very well over in the Shield. The Shield was over. Roman was over. And go back and watch it, because he got the pops every time he got that hot tag. He was the he was the heel when they were heels, and he was the one who was, you know, taking over matches. He was over, and he was over when he first, you know, the Shield first broke up, and everything came up aces except for the fact when fans realized, oh wait, here we go, Vince is going to make Roman the next guy. Let's just crap on him like we crapped on Cena, because remember, Cena was over too.
Yeah.
And Ambrose said that they didn't do him any good by giving him, you know, the suffering succotash line.
Oh God.
I mean, I know. And you hear this kind of stuff and you think to yourself, you know, it's a wonder how Roman is even close to even still being relevant at this point with all the crap he had been fed. You know, and this is just one of those things that if, you know, they're saying, Ambrose is saying that there are things that he's allowed to say and that he's not allowed, you know, he's not, you know, and that like he refuses to say. So he refused to use this verbiage about his best friend. And that's how he describes Roman in the interview. I'm not going to say this about my best friend. This isn't about wrestling storylines or anything like that. This is personal. This is two guys who are brothers in real life.
Yeah.
You know, in the trenches every night, together, doing this thing, you know, achieving all these goals and dreams together. These guys are brothers, and I'm not going to say this about my brother. So I give Dean all the credit in the world, because he had a lot that could have been put on his plate, and he's going to look even worse, because we know those aren't the words that are, you know, that are coming out of his mouth aren't his. But we'd like to think that, you know, he was smart enough to say, hey, no, I'm not going to do this. And luckily for us, he was.
Yeah, I agree. A lot about Dean Ambrose, or now Jon Moxley, of course. A lot about Moxley that I'm realizing, man, is that he just has common core respect and loyalty. He might seem like, I mean, he plays a great like I don't want to say crazy guy, just troubled soul. And he is a troubled soul. He has gone through hard times, and that's why his character is him turned up, dialed up, because he plays that well. But deep down, the guy has morals, a moral compass. I can tell that even if he doesn't want to portray it. So I dig that and I respect that. Andre, where are you at when it comes to the apparently vile things that Vince wanted Moxley to say about Roman Reigns and his leukemia?
Well, again, it just seemed like there could have been other ways to go about keeping Roman relevant in that particular storyline, and that would have allowed, to be something that wouldn't be totally offensive and totally doom and gloom for Roman's situation at that time. But what I think he also brought to light in the midst of discussing that issue is the fact that he didn't want to totally blame the creative team for the issues that come along with every wrestler when they're cutting their promos. But the fact of the matter is, he admitted to the fact that, a lot of these wrestlers, like the younger guys in particular, they are not allowed to do a lot of ad-libbing when they're doing their promos. They have to, literally take these scripts based on what Vince thinks of their character, or somebody in the creative team that has to get the okay from Vince and say, this is exactly what you're going to say, word by word. And it just comes off, again, inauthentic for a lot of these guys. When they're out there doing the interviews with Charlie Caruso or Renee Young, and they're just looking off camera and just, giving these half-assed kind of like, oh, I'm going to kick someone's ass type of deal, I never feel that. Once in a while, maybe like a Bray Wyatt or an AJ Styles, they could turn up the dial and be interesting, but half the time, I don't really get that sense. And for Ambrose, he seems to love spontaneity when it comes to his character. So even like the stuff that he would do in AEW, it's like, okay, there's a camera guy here, all right, bring him in, and he'll just riff and do whatever comes naturally. That's why some of what you're seeing now is, the coolest stuff that we've seen in him in probably 2 or 3 years. Even the little promo that he did before he came to AEW when nobody knew what he was going to do, he hired a real movie crew to come in and do this whole video package for him. It was really awesome. I mean, it just showed him as a badass. Yeah. So, why is it that only certain guys, like even right now, okay, you got Bray Wyatt with the Firefly Funhouse thing, that's all of his creation, and Vince is actually giving the okay to that, and that's some of the best stuff we're seeing on TV. Yeah. But why can't the other guys be allowed to get that treatment of saying, listen, this is who so-and-so is, and just let them have that say and that input in what they want to do, and yes, get the approval from Vince and let Vince, make whatever changes necessary to fit his vision. But if it feels authentic for the wrestler, the audience will accept that person, face or heel, right away. But when they have to do these stupid scripted promos, and then you're seeing it on the Tron and having to cut back to the audience reaction, it's just total bullshit. That's the sort of thing that pisses me off about sitting through Raw and SmackDown, is those little things that just are, it makes it feel phony to watch.
I agree, man. I agree. It's Production's been a huge issue for me for a really, really long time. I mean, they need to fix things. They need to change things. They need a new look, especially right now. And I would hope that we can get a brand new look come October in Fox. Who knows? Maybe. I mean, you never say never. But as far as the things that were said, I can't really speak too much to this one because I didn't hear it. I didn't hear that part of the interview. But man, it's just a thing that Man, Vince McMahon is baked into this business. I mean, he's baked into the business. Everything, there's nothing to him that isn't untouchable when it comes to, okay, let's turn this into a work. Like, he was talking about having a relationship with his own daughter, and then brother having, I mean, come on, he don't care, bro. He don't care. Like, he doesn't care. So, like, for me to say that is for me
Katie
to say
Vick, bro.
Katie Vick. That
Katie
got on
Vick.
TV. That got on TV. So, only thing I can say is this, is that I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, and I mean, I'm just not. I mean, is it disgusting? Is it vile? Yes, it's all those things. But am I shocked? Absolutely, positively not. I am not at all shocked that he would suggest this. I mean, look at the track record. It tells you. It tells you. So no, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all. It's just Vince being Vince, and this is and it's not a big deal to him. That's the thing. It's not a big deal to him. It's not that big of a deal to him. It's a big deal to us, but to him, everything could be a work. Nothing's off limits. Nothing is off limits. This is Vince McMahon we're talking about. Moving right along, we're going to be wrapping this thing up here soon, but I still want to ask at least a couple more questions. Let me ask you this, Michael. This is going away from the podcast a little bit, and this is a question that I asked to Prince Paradox when he was on here. Check that episode out, dropped on Thursday. How did you feel when you saw Moxley coming through the crowd in AEW, and not like let me take you back, but bring you back a little bit to now. You know what you know about what was said on that podcast. Now take all that information that you know, now that you've listened to that podcast, go back to that moment now where he debuted in AEW. Now that you have the information that you know, how do you feel now that you saw him debut at Double or Nothing?
Happy.
Yeah.
Happy for him.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely thrilled for him because just, again, I've never taken one day of psychology, but to look at that man, he just looked rejuvenated, reinvigorated, like his passion. I mean, he looked like he just felt free, and as far as like, was I surprised? No, I wasn't surprised that he was there because, there were rumblings of it anyway. Yeah. And it all just kind of lined up. It made sense. And to touch on the video that was mentioned, I guess he spent $8,000 of his own money on that too. So dude's got passion, right?
Yeah, he's got passion.
And he knocked it out of the park with that, as was previously stated. That was fantastic. And yeah, man, but to see him pop up at AEW was awesome. And then just to think of what he could potentially be there. I don't like comparing, as we've said before, this could be the next Rock, this could be the next, whoever. But with these circumstances, yeah. It's I don't want to be like, he could be like a Stone Cold-esque type situation there. Yeah, but I see where you're going. But it's kind of be like, one more as far as like the fuck you to Vince McMahon, so to speak. But that's not, and I don't want it to be that. Don't, as we've said before, don't acknowledge them. You want to take your shots here and there, okay, but be AEW. But it's just again what Moxley could be for them. It's going to be awesome. I mean, just the matches he can have, the potential matches that he can have, he could be him. The artist is going to be able to perform his art. Yep. So, again, going back to what I said initially, I'm happy for him. I couldn't be more thrilled for him.
And, bro, I absolutely 110% agree with you on that. Moving on to my man, Albert, how did you feel now knowing what you know and going back and thinking about that debut? How does it make you feel now that you know what you know?
Well, allow me to be a little bit of a contrarian, just because
please.
It wouldn't be me if I wasn't a little bit. I I was happy for Jon Moxley. I was happy that he got his creative license back. I was happy that he's going to be able to be the wrestler and the, he was able to cut the promos that he wants to. He's being the guy he wants to be. But there's a huge part of me that is really upset because I'm a huge fan of The Shield.
Yeah.
When they debuted in WWE, I was in the entire way.
Yep.
The second day, first of all, Seth Rollins is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Before he came to WWE, I followed his career from Ring of Honor to NXT to the WWE.
Yeah.
I am the biggest Seth Rollins mark. No matter what was going to happen, whoever came with him, they're going to wind up just being some of my favorites just because they were associated with Rollins.
Yeah.
It just so happened that Roman became one of my favorite. He just became one of my guys when the Shield debuted.
Yeah.
And immediately I knew who Dean Ambrose was. That's Jon Moxley. I've seen Jon Moxley before.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So I'm disappointed that, but let's face it, the way he spoke about everything, and of course it's a wrestling business, never say never. We may never see the Shield again, guys.
Yeah,
and that's disappointing to me.
Yeah. I agree.
I would love that, the idea of, hey, what if he goes to AEW and, he does what he does, but we know that in like 4 or 5 years he's going to come back. The Shield gets another ride again, and we get to see him, into WWE and do his thing, and then hopefully he winds up, coming back full time. And, that's always been my mindset because, let's face it, nobody ever leaves forever. But with AEW looking like the success that it possibly could be, which is a whole nother discussion, this really makes us think we may never see the Shield again. And I don't know about everybody else. That upsets me just as much as I'm excited for Dean Ambrose. And I get it. He's not making these decisions based on, well, is that this kid from Staten Island, New York, going to be happy that he's never going to see the Shield again? He's making it for himself, and I understand that. But you got to think that a lot of the fans that he built over time, he talks about doing the Make-A-Wish stuff. He talks about how happy he was interacting with all the fans and stuff like that, because that's not something he was used to while being an indie wrestler.
Yeah.
He talks about how much that meant to him. And that's kind of stuck that in the back of his mind he probably knows that everybody's probably happy for him, but there's probably a bunch of people who are really disappointed knowing we'll never see that again. I'm happy for Jon Moxley, but I'm sad that I'll probably never see Dean Ambrose again.
I totally understand where you're coming from, bro. I understand that to a level of I was there in Bankers Life Fieldhouse November 18th, 2012, right up the road in Indianapolis, Indiana, when the Shield debuted, and I'm like, oh shit, is that Jon Moxley? Is that Tyler Black? That's crazy. I already knew who Roman Reigns was from NXT, and I'm like, whoa, this is a whole thing. This is crazy. So I totally understand what you're saying when you're saying you missed the Shield, because they had, if people forget that the Shield was like a reason to watch. Like, you never really knew. Like, as soon as you heard that Sierra Hotel India Echo Lima Delta Shield, somebody was about to get their ass beat. Somebody was about to get that work, and I loved that. I loved not knowing when or where it was coming, but I knew it was coming. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Shield. Love the Shield, and yeah, now that you bring it up, I am a little bit sad that I'm not going to see them reform, or we may not. Once again, like you said, you never say never, but I am a little bit sad about that, but happy for Jon Moxley. Andre, where are you at on knowing what you know now, and then going back to his debut with AEW? How do you feel about it now?
Well, I'm totally thrilled for Jon Moxley, because now he has that creative freedom to do exactly what he had been doing in the indies previously, and having more control of his character and a whole new fresh set of matches that he could have with all kinds of superstars now. I mean, yes, I'm going to miss the Shield as well, and, we probably won't see them for a long time, if ever. If things ever do not work out in AEW when he comes back, I mean, it could be a completely different lineup, or just the way that they would be much older. Who knows if they would even still have the spark again? But obviously, that's just speculation for down the line. I think that the only thing they have to really be careful with, and this is just my criticism about the show itself, Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
I love the fact that there was so much variety in the card. I mean, you had your luchadors, you had your women, you had your high flyers, and you had your straight up, ass-kicking matches like you had with Dustin Rhodes and Cody, and that was certainly a memorable match in itself. So having Ambrose show up and be that icing on the cake, it definitely was a flashback to the first Monday Nitro when Lex Luger came out. Nobody knew that he was going to jump ship from WWE to WCW, because back then we didn't really have the internet to go and read the dirt sheets to know that he was on his way out. Yeah. So, Dean certainly is that particular piece right now to get those WWE fans to really pay attention and say, okay, this company is serious. This is not going to be another TNA or another Ring of Honor. But where AEW has to be really careful is all the little cheap shots towards the WWE. I get they're trying to get the attention, that get people who are thinking it's going to be a new Monday Night Wars. As I said in the last podcast that I was on with you guys, I don't want to see the two companies try to put each other out of business. I want to see them both strive to make each other better. Oh, yeah. But if you're going to do this on a weekly basis of saying, well, we're going to attack Triple H, we're going to attack Bayley, we're going to attack, the 24/7 title, all of a sudden it just becomes pandering to the very fans that I know Albert despises. Yeah. And I think that's going to only hurt rather than expand it to a mass audience.
Great points there. Great points there. Yeah, very true. Very true. A lot of true statements there. So I could say that I agree. Man, looking back at that debut, looking back at his debut with AEW, and knowing some of the things that I've heard from this podcast interview, I'm just thinking, man, I'm just happy for him, man. We break it down. We break it down a million different ways, and that's why you guys out there, the household, the listening audience, 14 different countries across the United States and locally here in Indiana. That's why you listen to us, because we just give you so many different perspectives, and we throw a lot of information at you, and we're proud of that fact. We're proud of the fact that we can have great guests like we have on here today. But when I think about it. Man, I'm just like, at the common core, at the center of everything, I'm just happy for the man. Like, when I think about this guy was going through depression and whatnot, I'm just like, man, I'm just happy dude's happy. Like, for real. Like I know there's so many different ways to break it down with the business, AEW, WWE, and everything, this and that, but break it down, let's take that all away for a second. I'm just happy for the man, that he's just got that breath of fresh air, that woosah, brother, and I'm just, it just thrills me just to see that he's gonna be the best him that he can be, and he did what he had to do to be the best him that he could be. So most definitely, I'm happy. He's one of my favorite wrestlers. And when I saw it, and I was so inspired when he got to NXT and the WWE, and then to see what happened, it just turned me off on Dean for a while. But to see what I'm seeing now, I'm just so happy, and I wish him nothing but success, for sure, nothing but success. And that brings me to my last question here. The last thing I want to talk about. This is not from the Jericho podcast. This is going to be a little bit long, so stay with me here, fellas. This is actually from Moxley's interview with Wade Keller. So I'm going to read this off, and we're going to start with Michael. Once you hear this, I want you to give me your thoughts. And this is Jon Moxley. 3 hours of Raw dilutes the product. When it's all produced and looks the same, it's diluted. But I don't know how you fill 3 hours of Raw. At least SmackDown is 2, so it's manageable. Maybe you go back to it being an hour. I remember as a kid, Bret Hart would hardly wrestle on TV, but if they announced him versus Brad Radford, I would tune in just to see Bret. Because they retread the same matches over and over, some guys don't even get used. But the guys who get used are overused. So you see pay-per-view caliber matches 3 weeks in a row. A lot of the guys getting used every week would like to see other guys getting a shot. Because TV is the last show of the loop, and guys wouldn't mind taking the night off and being sent home to rest. Like, if someone's in a feud, just play a video package and say, up next, Tyler Breeze is in action this week. But guys like Tyler Breeze, Chad Gable, and Apollo Crews should be used to seem important instead of getting a Dean Ambrose versus Drew McIntyre match 3 weeks in a row. Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's absolutely true, man. I mean, it goes back to what we've talked about on here before. And again, it's not just, I always, as you said, it's tough to talk about WWE on here because we don't want to just come on here and shit on them,
Right.
you know, because that's not what we're about. We'll call out staleness when we see it, but we'll call out staleness in the indies too, be it if AEW does some bullshit, and let's face it, they had some botches on their show.
Yep.
You know, and
Yep.
It wasn't a perfect show, but again, but going back to that, man, it's tough. I mean, it's one of those things, man. I don't know. It's with Dean Ambrose and what he's going to bring to AEW, man. It's going to be awesome. And I'm just going to see where it goes. I mean, that's all we can do at this point, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
That's all we could do at this point, man. That's all we can do at this point is see where it goes. And he's talking about 3 hours of Raw diluting the product, and a lot of that I agree with. So what do you think about that?
It does, man, and it just goes back to that formulaic stuff that Vince does. It just rinse, repeat. We got the most stacked roster in the world, but we got too many people here, and we don't know what to do with them. They go hot, cold with everybody. They got your multi-man tag matches over and over again. You got your same promos. You got your same openings every single week. It's just the same stuff over and over again. And again, as we've said, I know nothing about like writing for a show. I've never done it, nor will I most likely ever do it. But it's again, they got to do something. They got to do something because what they're doing is hurting. It's hurting their talent. Mm-hmm. It's hurting their brand. And I'm not going to say they're doomed. They're not going out of business.
No.
And AEW is not going to take them down or anything like that, nor should that happen, because then AEW is going to be in the situation where they have no competition. Then they're going to get complacent, and then that negative cycle is going to happen all over again. Yep. So, yeah, man. But, again, I don't have a definitive answer on what they can do because, again, I'm not a booker. I'm a fan. Right. But... yeah, I mean, I just hope that this AEW thing is going to be a wake-up call, and I think it's going to boil down to the ratings that AEW starts pulling come October. And once that happens, and it may take a couple of years, because if you go back to WWE when WCW was starting to go over, with the ratings and whatnot, it took them a few years, to realize, like, oh, man, we got a problem here. We may need to do something. And then they did, and the credit goes to the talent, but that talent was able to go out and do their own thing. They weren't micromanaged. Could you imagine what Steve Austin would do if he was micromanaged like this?
Oh God, we wouldn't see Austin 316.
No, not at all. I mean, and again, that line right there was something I do believe that Austin just randomly said it, and next thing you know, it caught on. And it spread like wildfire. And then that next night on Raw, you saw because it was King of the Ring that he said that, right?
Yep, King of the Ring.
And then that following Raw, you saw Austin 316 signs everywhere. And then they had what I do believe is still the highest selling T-shirt that they've ever had in the Austin 3. And that was just off a random ad-libbed line. An artist performing their art. Let them do their shit.
Thank you, bro. Totally agree with everything that you just said. Excellent points. You got to let the artists do their art. And there's so many guys on this roster. 3 hours of Monday Night Raw, 2 hours of Tuesday Night SmackDown, and even an hour NXT, and they just don't have enough room for all these guys. Albert, what are your thoughts on what Moxley said about the structuring of the show?
So I agree with a lot of things he said, but the one thing I don't agree with is the fact that 3 hours is too long. Because, let's face it, we had a lot of wrestling fans complaining about the fact that WWE went from a 3-hour pay-per-view format to a 4-hour pay-per-view format. Now, as hard as it is to even realize it, it wasn't too long ago. We had 3-hour pay-per-views. Now, every WWE pay-per-view is 4 hours, not counting a pre-show. But yet nobody complained about the length of AEW show. So is it that 3 hours is too long or 4 hours is too long? Or no, it's not about that. It's about your taste and what you like. Yeah. Now, like Andre had said the last time, AEW does cater to a certain, section of the fans. Some of which I'm not a fan of who they are. Right. And that is true. But what I find, Mike pointed out before, hypocrisy will reign in this whole AEW versus WWE battle because AEW's pay-per-view was long, but nobody said anything about it.
Right.
AEW's pay-per-view was expensive, and people were complaining about the fact that they had to pay for it. Right. There's a lot of hypocrisy that goes on when it comes to wrestling fans. The one thing I've realized, though, in being a fan for this long, is that 3 hours for a wrestling show isn't a bad thing. It's the way that WWE is structuring those 3 hours. And he is right in one respect. Dean Ambrose should not be wrestling Drew McIntyre 3 weeks in a row. I mean, I get it. When he was on his way out, they were just trying to make McIntyre look like a monster, and he was going to be the one who kind of took him out. I get that. That's fine. Cool. Yeah. Understandable. That's the reason why you're doing that. But if Ambrose was sticking around, man, those matches shouldn't happen. And, there are reasons why I guess people get mad now because we're so used to seeing competitive matches on TV. But there were enhancement talents. There were squash matches. There were guys who were lower on the roster. And, yes, were they talented? Sure. But, not everybody – and I'm not saying this to pick on Tyler Breeze because I love Tyler Breeze. And I think that he's great. And I think he deserves better than where he's being booked. It's just that his name's fresh in my mind because he was the one that was named in the in that article. In the interview. Yeah. Tyler Breeze isn't a main event guy. Maybe he could be one day, but right now he's not. So Drew McIntyre should be tearing him apart on Raw. Apollo Crews should get like a decent amount of offense in against a guy like McIntyre, but still get beat. Chad Gable should have a competitive match with somebody on the roster, but still wind up not coming out the victor in the end. That's okay. Not everybody has to win every week.
Right.
It doesn't hurt people. If these guys have good matches against good talent, they will eventually wind up getting over to a point, and you can book them to start winning because you're like, oh, well, it makes sense that Chad Gable could beat this guy because he took Drew McIntyre to the limit 3 weeks ago. Right. You can build characters and build stories that way, but they have to be featured on the program, and they have to have things to do. I get a lot of heat because I am a proponent of the way Vince Russo wrote television. And I know a lot of people don't like Vince Russo, but the one thing you have to understand about Vince Russo was that there was a cliffhanger at the end of every Monday Night Raw where you wanted to tune in every single week because, oh my God, what's going to happen next week? Vince looks like he's going to screw Austin again. Is Austin going to get screwed? He's going to get stripped of the title? Oh my God. And all the mid-card guys had something to do.
Yep.
The difference is that there weren't fans fighting to make sure that, oh my God, it's such BS. I can't believe Al Snow and Scorpio lost again this week. And that's wrestling fans for us right now. I found it to be really ironic that people were so mad about how bad Ty Dillinger was booked on WWE programming, yet nobody mentioned he was eliminated in the middle of a battle royal and on an AEW pre-show. Everybody was so mad. Ty Dillinger's too good to be on not be left on pay-per-views and be put on pre-shows, and he was on a pre-show.
Yep.
But everybody was okay with that. So again, wrestling fan hypocrisy. And that's what gets me angry.
Yeah.
Fans are, will sit there and they'll be like, "Well, I should go back to being 2 hours. It's too much to watch for 3 hours." Nah, it's not too much to watch for 3 hours. 3 hours isn't the problem. The problem is the structure and the way that we're laying out the show. Yep. Why are there 15 video packages recapping the opening segment of Raw? We don't need that. Scratch all those things out. You get 2 matches, a couple of tag matches that highlight your undercard, that highlight your guys that you want to highlight, and start coming up. Because let's face it, not every one of these guys are going to be around forever. Daniel Bryan could be a concussion away from having to retire, and he's done it before. Yep. Dean Ambrose walked out and left and said he's not re-signing his contract. You have guys like the Revival saying they don't want to sign. Sasha Banks doesn't want to re-sign. Luke Harper doesn't want to be there anymore. Guys are asking for their releases left and right, and if you don't keep refurbishing your roster and making people important, it's going to be a negative on you in 3-4 years when, oh my God, 3 people are out. We have no people to put into this position because we never built people up that way. And then people aren't going to accept the guys that you just throw into the middle of a program to be world champion. Jinder Mahal. Oh, sorry, excuse me. But yeah, that's what you get when you don't know how to build your roster, and that's where Vince is lacking more than any place else. So Dean is 100% right. The structure of the show is horrible. The WWE needs to make sure that they highlight newer talent, and they need to stop giving away pay-per-view caliber matches for free, because when we watch these pay-per-views, whether or not I get it, we're only paying $10, we shouldn't complain too much, but it's a pay-per-view. We want to see something special, something different. And if I've seen Seth Rollins wrestle AJ Styles 3 times, during the build to a feud, and then they wrestle again, why do I care?
Facts, man. Facts. I agree with you. You made a lot of fantastic points. I don't. Now that you presented it to me like that, I agree. I don't think 3 hours is the problem. I think that it's the content that you put within the constructs of those 3 hours. So great points. You definitely opened my eyes on that. So thank you for that. Now we're gonna throw it over to Andre. How do you feel about the things that Moxley said about the structure of the show?
He's absolutely right, because I could tell you for the past several months, getting through even just the first hour and 45 minutes of Raw becomes such a chore that by 9:45 I end up going to fall asleep. And, not that the WWE sees AEW as a major threat at the moment, but you look at Double or Nothing, people were talking about it. You had significant celebrities and even politicians talking about it on Twitter, a day after the show aired. So you would have thought that, okay, now I got to watch Monday Night Raw because I got to see if they're going to name drop AEW, which they did through Sami Zayn, but I want to see if they're actually going to try to step up their game and actually do a good show.
Yeah.
Instead, what we got was the first hour with segments being broken up by commercial breaks, not even a single match for almost not until 8:50. And by the time you got there, you have Shane McMahon cutting a promo that gets interrupted by a commercial break. And then when the commercial break's over, he's wrestling a jobber just to show how tough he's going to be against Roman Reigns at that Blood Money show in Saudi Arabia. It's like they're taking away TV time from a number of talents that haven't been on TV for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. And, I agree with Albert. Not everybody is expected to be a main eventer. Everybody has their spot. But if you're going to do, all this stuff to try to get the ratings up, this ridiculous wild card idea where you're going to throw all the top guys on both shows every week, now you're going to take away TV time from, Mojo Rawley, who I'm not a fan of, but you've been building him up with these promos, and now we're wasting his time. And, we didn't even get into the EC3 situation. I mean, here's a situation where when the ratings were really bad back in Christmas, they had Vince come out dressed like Santa Claus saying, we're going to give the fans what they want. We're going to introduce a bunch of new wrestlers from NXT. He's one of them. Heavy Machinery is another one. Kairi Sane. And then the next thing you know, they come on and they get their video package and everything. But then, you get EC3 beating Dean Ambrose on his way out. And all of a sudden we're going to punish him because the fans cheered for Dean Ambrose. So now we're going to destroy this guy with Braun Strowman. And then that ridiculous barbecue bit that they had in the back where he's just sitting there, sipping his drink. If you even go on the guy's Twitter page, he sounds like a very depressed man who wants to get out of his contract right now. So that tells you about the state of that roster, that there's a lot of guys who are itching to get the hell out of there. They don't even have to go to AEW. They could go to Japan. They could go back to Impact Wrestling. But cut the fat. You don't need all these guys if they're not happy.
Right.
And as far as the structure goes, it comes down to two things. It does come down to Vince McMahon and the way that he books these shows so horribly because he's out of touch. But it's also the networks. The same networks, particularly the USA Network, that's saying, we got to figure out a way to make the third hour more interesting and more engaging for the fans. How about the 24/7 idea, just like the hardcore title? And we'll come up with this Happy Meal belt for everybody to chase after and, give it to R-Truth to make it like a big joke every week. I know it's supposed to make it interesting and fun, but now it just makes the show even more of a mess. I mean, we have Seth Rollins coming off of that whole promo with Brock Lesnar, who's really pissing me off with his cock teasing with the Money in the Bank thing. Like he comes off this promo, then all of a sudden we're going to have all the 24/7 guys come out. This is just bad booking. This is WCW level shit. And that's what's going to be the problem unless something changes, whether it's with Vince or whether it's with the network.
Oh, man. He said it was a Happy Meal belt, yo. Oh, man. Andre, do you know what you just did, bro? Do you know what you just did by saying that?
What I do?
Bro, you just added 6 months to Luke Harper's contract, bro.
Oh, good job. Good job.
That's horrible.
That man's never going to get to leave.
Way to go, Andre.
Everybody thank Andre.
Oh, man. Oh. Man.
I do have to say one thing, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do like Boombox Brock.
I did, too.
I'm going to say it. I like Boombox Brock. Makes me laugh. Watching Brock Lesnar dance.
Shit.
Dude, I haven't been that entertained by Brock Lesnar, the character, since the time he came out with like the mariachi band and whatnot. My God.
Dude, I said the exact same thing the other day. The exact same thing. It's so great.
I like it when Brock gets a character going, because he does it at times where you don't really expect it, and then the whole boombox thing just kind of caught on, and I'm telling you, he had to see the memes. He had to have seen the memes. I know he's a farm boy and he don't really pay attention to social media, but somebody showed him those memes. Somebody.
Oh, definitely. And to Brock's credit, he ran with it. And I know this is getting off subject, but I think this is the Brock where you get to see now that there's no UFC in the future. So you know what? We can joke around a little bit because I don't have to look like a legitimate athlete every single week anymore. Everybody knows I'm a badass. Now I can run around and joke around and be a little bit more funny because I don't have to look a certain way for Dana White to take me seriously if I want to go sign a UFC contract. So you know what? I know a lot of people say it's too little too late because of how bad it's been with Brock as champion for as long as he was. But if this is the way Brock's going to be booked for here on out, I'm for it.
I like it, man. I do like the fact that we don't know when he's going to cash in. I do like it. Apparently, they're saying he's going to cash in this Monday. We're going to see. I know I'll be checking it out. I mean, I want to see. That's the thing. I still have there's some times where I'll be down from watching, but it doesn't matter how many times I say I might not check it out. Somehow it always ends up on my TV. So I'm not going to sit up here and say, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Like, no, I watch it. I still watch it, and I'm going to continue to watch it. That's just I enjoy wrestling, period. And if something great happens, I don't want to miss it. You know what I mean? And that's what I feel like tying back into the conversation that they need to do. And the structure of it. It's and me and Michael have had this conversation so many times, and he's the one who said it, and I was like, bro, you are so right. It's too formulaic. It's just too it follows a formula of promo. Somebody comes out for a promo. Somebody comes out to interrupt. They're talking to each other. Then a couple other guys come out to interrupt, and then all of a sudden it turns into a main event that's either starting right now or it's the main event of the evening. I mean, it's all too predictable and formulaic, and I know that's why they brought in the 24/7 championship. I know that's why they're put the Money in the Bank contract on Brock Lesnar, and I guess I'm gonna cape for WWE a little bit here, because they are making efforts. They really are making efforts to try to make things a little bit more interesting. And in this whole ordeal, nobody's even talking about the fact that the part-timer Brock Lesnar's been on Monday Night Raw every week for the last few weeks. He has, and he gets killed for being a part-timer. Rightfully so. He gets absolutely killed for being a part-timer. But absolutely nobody's talking about the fact that he's showing up every week. Michael said himself that Brock is a draw. And nobody's talking about the fact that the guy's showing up weekly when the company needs him the most. What's happening? That just flew under the radar right there. You know, so I will say this, that I do agree with what Moxley was saying about the structure of the show, but I also want to say that I do feel like they are trying to make changes, but it's really tough because it's too huge. The company is too huge when it's just the booker and the wrestlers and maybe, you know, some writers in the interval and stuff like that. It's much easier. Now there's too much freaking red tape that everybody has to go through and hoops that everybody has to go through just to talk to each other. It's gotten too big for its britches. You got the best talent in the world. You're not using half the damn talent. What's going on? I mean, definitely we have to see some changes, and hopefully with these efforts that they're making now, they're trying to see what's going to stick. I mean, that's the feeling that I get, is right now they're just throwing darts at a wall right now, because that 24/7 championship, I mean, it ain't it. I mean, it's not it. I mean, I get where they're going, though. I get where they're going, and I have to say that I've enjoyed R-Truth's time with it, because he's the right type of guy that you want to put on with that. It's a joke title, so you get somebody who does a great, you know, comedy act like it fits for me. It fits for me, but that's not sustainable. That's just putting that man. You're putting a Band-Aid and a crack on the dam. That's not fixing it. It's a Band-Aid. It's not a long-term solution at all. So that's how I feel about it. Hopefully things continue to get better, and they continue to try to surprise us on a weekly basis, and maybe be a little bit less formulaic. And guys, the formula for this show was incredible. This was a great episode, and of course, I got to do what I do, and that is give my people who honor me and come on my show a platform to plug whatever they want to plug. And I'm going to start with Michael. Go ahead, bro.
Well, before I go ahead and put over my my Twitter on here, going back to the hip hop Brock thing.
Yeah,
I fucking love it as well. And if he don't come out sea walking and pop locking this week, it's all for nothing. It's all for nothing, because it's just good shit. But anyway, yeah, this has been awesome. And Albert and Andre, it's been awesome chopping it up with you guys on here again. And I'm sure we'll probably be back on here again at some point to, you know, go another round. But that being said, you can catch me on the Twitter at Mikey Hutch, IYH. So yeah, give me a follow. We can chop it up about wrestling or whatever, and you know, regardless of what you watch, be it WWE, AEW, TNA, doesn't matter. You know, we are one. So yeah, catch y'all next time. Peace.
That is my man, Mikey Hutch. My man, always telling you guys that no matter what side you guys are on, just remember we are one, and I totally agree. That is one of the great mantras of this show. Now I'm going to throw it to my man, Albert. Go ahead and plug away, bro.
All right, so you guys can check me out on YouTube.com. Just search for Slam Sessions Network. I actually just recently posted a new video 2 days ago. I have 2 in the bag that I'm just in the middle of editing and going to update, and throw on there soon. So a lot of new content coming your way. So just do me a huge favor and throw a like or a subscribe my way, and I would be forever in debt to you. And I have a Twitter. I don't ever remember what it is. So if you find me on there, you can add me and talk to me. I'm horrible when it comes to stuff like that. But if you really do want to talk to me, you have a Facebook, facebook.com/the Slam Sessions Podcast Network. That's where I talk about all the stuff that I do. I post some stuff about WWE. And if you guys want to talk to me about anything, just do it through there. Just, write something out there. Tell me what you want to see on the show. Talk to me about what you want to talk about. And if you are an internet wrestling mark, I might, yell at you. And I don't know, maybe that might be a good thing for you. I don't know anymore.
He doesn't know anymore, but here's something that I do know is that you can follow my man Albert at KYD Justice on Twitter, and also the Slam Sessions on Twitter as well. No problem, bro. No problem, bro. I'm here to help my man out. That's what I do. Now, I'm going to throw it over to my man Andre. Plug away, bro.
So you can follow my action figure podcast, the Silver Screen Action Figure Podcast, on Facebook, and we have our Twitter page at the Silver Screen AF1. And if you want to see any of our past episodes and our recent ones that we have up, we have that on the AJ Epics Productions YouTube channel, which is AJEPYX Productions 1. And, I'm actually thinking about doing an episode on custom action figures, especially the old school wrestling figures that we used to collect. So hopefully maybe I'll get you guys on that pretty soon.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That'd be cool.
Oh, yeah, definitely be. That'd be so fun. That'd be so much fun.
I'd be down. That'd be cool as hell.
Oh, yeah, that sounds cool as hell, bro. And I'd totally be down. That sounds so dope. And this podcast episode was dope, guys. Michael, Albert, Andre, guys, thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me tonight. Truly appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having us, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate it. This is awesome.
Yes, and you guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. But I'm gonna tell you guys right now that you guys out there, the household, you guys are awesome. You guys are awesome too for listening to this excellent episode of this podcast. It was a Roundtable Super Slam. Hey, let me let you guys know where you guys can listen to us at. You guys can listen to us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Himalaya. Oh, you don't have an Apple device? Hey, that's all right. We're on Google Play. Anywhere that you guys are, hey, we can get to you. Check us out. October 5th, Heroes and Legends. Hey, Heroes and Legends 13, that is, on the Fight app. Oh, yes. Ooh, getting a little spicy up in here with the Fight app getting involved. Hey, check that out. You guys can just download it on your phone and get it on pay-per-view. Check that out. And we're the official podcast. Guys, I tell you all the time, get on or get gone. Because the household, well, we going strong. You guys have a great day and a great rest of your week. Peace.